Hi. Gosh, thanks for letting me do this. I sure appreciate. I have places as I prepared that I kept stumbling over ways I'm thankful for this place and these people and each of you. And a lot of us were all together a month or so ago when my Cheryl was in town, and I think it's cropped up in every time somebody's talked in church since then, and especially his ladder diagram. And I'm going to give it just the time of day here. If you're sitting on a pew or if you're standing on a floor, would you agree with me that there is such a thing as a physical realm? Have I got a consensus on that? Yeah. And Mike labeled this as the flesh. For the purposes of this morning, I'm going to call it physical as well. There's a physical world, and I think we've got 100% agreement on that, but I've got something rattling the mic. Should I do something different? Or no. Anyway, and I think I could get agreement that underneath the bottom rung of Mike's ladder, and I think extending beyond the sides of Mike's ladder, is another realm, and we'd call it the spirit, I think. And I don't think I'd have a fight from that. There's things underneath that in the God realm. Things are happening in the spirit. We can't see them and we can't feel them. We can't touch them, but they're real. Oh, Heather, that's your cue. And there is a handout to go with today's thing. But and I'm going to label this spirit, and it runs like a river. It transcends the boundaries of the ladder. It's there. It would go across the whole board, but I'm not going to take the time. But in the middle, and you'll see it on the handout being passed out, there's thoughts, there's feelings, there's all kinds of things. And I'm going to just write words in here, and I'm going to label it the area of the soul. That's a recap of what Mike Mearshira did, slightly translated through my understanding. What happens in the realm of the soul is nothing in the physical arose without having started down here and being filtered upwards through our souls. In other words, you don't have a pew unless somebody had the thought that sitting would happen, and then they had the thought to make the pew, and then presto changeo, you've got the pew. It came through the soul. The soul is the area of interpretation. It's where the things of the spirit, this wordless substrate down here, becomes words and then becomes the stuff of life, the pews. I call it interpretation. I also call it translation. It's like you're translating the stuff from down here up to up here. And I'm an author and an illustrator, and I call it story. That's where story happens. The stuff in our gut, we make stories out of the stuff that happens down in our spirit from God's spirit. So let's talk about, today's talk, in case, where did I put it? There it is. Today's talk is really about the realm of story. I haven't failed to notice that it's December 1st. And that means that, give or take a few hours, in 25 days it'll be Christmas. Can't get away from it. And I feel every year like, and there are many things I love about it, but I feel every year like a steamroller is coming along. And the steamroller of Christmas panoply, tradition, stuff, all the things that attend Christmas. It's like a steamroller coming, and what it tends to do is it flattens the story that happened that brought us our Lord. You know, the steamroller rolls over Christmas, and what you end up with is Christmas cards and those felt board, flannel graph things. Everything gets flattened. It becomes this tradition, and all of a sudden, we stopped thinking about what really happened. It does, you know, whenever I make a statement and I'm in front of people, I can immediately think of ways in which I disagree with myself. There are a lot of things I love about the Christmas tradition, but when I think about what it's done to the story of Christmas, it hasn't always done it any favors. It rolls over it. That's one way to look at story with regard to Christmas. Another way is something that happened a couple of years ago in a conversation I had with someone very dear to me. They said to me, "So Mom," oh, I've given it away, I knew I would. "You really think the God of the universe impregnated a 13-year-old girl to bring us someone who would die for our sins and save everything?" And of course, and I answered yes, because it's my job. But then I thought this relationship is very important to me, and it requires the utmost honesty. And I said, actually, yeah, I believe it. 13, I don't know how old she was, but yeah, I believe it. But what I really believe is the woman who touched the hem of his garment. I really believe the centurion whose servant was healed. I believe the stories. There's another way to look at the Christmas story. C.S. Lewis said, and I can't find the quote, and if anybody here can find it, send it to me, but he said that the very unlikeliness of the Christmas story is what caused him to find it believable. And that's a theme I want to pick up on later. So there's the "you really believe that" way to look at Christmas. There's the way to look at it like a steamroller has flattened it out, and all you get are these Christmas cards with poinsettias and Bibles on them. But there's a third way, and it's, where's my marker? T.S. Eliot said, "The cross of Christ is the still point in a turning world." My mental picture of the universe, which is big, is an hourglass. And the waist of the hourglass is the life of Christ. There's a cross down here, but you don't get to have the cross without what? You gotta have the manger, and you gotta have the star. And that's the framework, that's the story I would put around Christmas. Here's a true story that boggles my mind even today. A rather crusty old lady called her daughter, who had become a Quaker and was a Christian. And this old lady had always gone to church, done all the right stuff, and she called her daughter and said, they're telling me the Jesus who died at Easter is the same Jesus who was born at Christmas?" And her daughter said, "Yes, Mom." Her mom replied, "Well, that makes no sense. Everybody knows Easter comes before Christmas." Oh. Anyway, everything revolves around these 33 years. It says that in the old, it says, I'm a fan of proof texts, but I never remember to make you look them up, but it's 1 Peter 1:12 that says, "The angels always desired to look into the things the prophets were prophesying," and they knew Jesus was coming. It says in, where is it? It's in the Gospels. John 8:56. You don't have to look it up, but you can write it down. That Abraham looked forward to the time that Jesus was coming. Everything from here looks forward to this. Everything, and we are here, and the hourglass shape loses itself here because it keeps getting wider at this point. Because all of us here, Everything we have and everything we do harks back to what happened there. It all harkens back to this, and I want to go into a little bit of the backstory now that we've established this way of looking at the story instead of the, you really think, or the flattened Christmas cards. I want a way to look at the story of how he came so that it lives for me, so that it has some blood and guts, so it has some way to reach into my gut and get me where I live. And here with us, one book I read in preparation for doing this today is my friend Frank's book on the Magi, which I am confident he has some copies of. It's a little thing, but lots of depth in the understanding of what went into it. We think 3 guys hustled up on camels, put 3 nicely decorated boxes, because the poorly decorated ones don't show up well on Christmas cards, into the hands of Joseph and Mary and scuttled off another way. There's so much more to the story. And when we know the story, it gets some life in our hearts. I'm going to read for a little bit from Matthew chapter 2. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he that's born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." Okay, we've got a story going on here. And we've got a cast. And who's our cast? Well, we've got a baby. And he's born King of the Jews. We've got 2 supportive parents who believe God. I'm not going to keep writing these out, they'll be illegible. We've got 1 bad guy, because every story needs a bad guy. And let me elaborate just a little on how bad the bad guy was. Herod was a bad guy who, concerned that his wife was not entirely loyal to him, simply killed her. Concerned at the end of his life that his sons might try to plot against him, killed them. Concerned that a delegation that had talked about him in Rome had talked about him badly. When they got home, he killed them. And when he went to Rome himself and orchestrated, he who had not one drop, not one, of Jewish blood in him, Rome declared him, guess what his title was? King of the Jews. Presto changeo. Do you see a certain conflict developing in the story? Knowing that he had no claim to be King of the Jews, he was therefore especially jealous of that title. You can well imagine his reaction to the wise men, of whom there were not 3, but probably a delegation of like 1,000. They were, let me pause here. Anyway, you can imagine his reaction to their question. That's a little background on Herod. Let me give you a little background on the Magi. This is just a drive-by. I highly recommend you talk to Frank if you really want to know depth. But they were from a group that dated all the way back through 4 previous empires, not 4 previous administrations, but 4 previous empires. I think it goes Assyrian, Babylonian, I forget, and then Greek. They were like a priestly caste. It's hard to describe exactly who they were, but by the time they arrived at Herod's court, they were a well-established group that had 3 areas of a special expertise that were really important back then. One was dream interpretation. And I am so thankful, here's a place I get to give props to us, because I am so thankful to be in a place where dreams are honored and talked about and nobody gives you stink eye for talking about them. Except I feel like all the cool kids are the ones who have the dreams. I never get a dream. I know there was a snippet of somebody losing their false teeth last night in my dream, but I don't remember the before and I don't remember the after. So, like, what's the point? But Adam has dreams, real dreams. I know many of you in this audience, that's how he speaks to you. Well, it used to be a thing that people took seriously and navigated by, and you'll see in this record, it was crucial to the navigation. It was imperative. Dreams were part of their expertise. Reading the stars, which you will also see in what I am convinced is not a spoiler, was also going to be very important in this record. And the third thing that I didn't know about is all over the Persian Empire, their function was, they came from a governmental system with two houses, a royal house and a house that would be like the House of Commons. It was the House of the Magi. And when the king in the Persian Empire died over generations and generations, they didn't have a right of primogeniture where the oldest son automatically took over. You know how the next king was chosen? The Magi picked him. Does it give you goosebumps when you think about where that took us with his appearance in Herod's court? Whoa. Who is he that's born, where is he that's born King of the Jews, they say, to someone who clutches feverishly to his bosom the title, King of the Jews. The guy who kills anybody who looks like the most remote threat in the distance to his title. Whoa. And they've got 1,000, because you wouldn't travel the Silk Road in that day in a company of 3 camels with 3 nicely divergent guests' robes, so that they look good on Christmas cards. You would have an entourage. And when it says Herod was troubled and all Jerusalem with him, you can well imagine that a group of that many people coming from an empire that they had been at war with only 40 years earlier would have troubled the city. So that's our cast, and that's how it worked. Let me read on a little bit, and then I want to get to what I want to say. Anyway, Herod gathers all the chiefs and high priests. He said to them, where is this supposed to happen? And they tell him, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah. And the prophecy reads, Bethlehem in the land of Judah are not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. They knew enough to know that it was going to be in Bethlehem. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And by the way, they're not arriving like the week of his birth. I mean, I imagine Jesus might have been able to toddle over to meet them by the time they arrived, because they had to see the star and then travel the Silk Road to get there. Anyway, he sent them to Bethlehem. They went to Bethlehem. And when they were, I'm skipping a few verses, back down to verse 11. When they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother. And by the way, the word young child is not the word for infant. They fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. The reason the Magi had been looking for this star, who knew to recognize it when it appeared, is that, remember my list of empires, starting with Assyrian, the second one was Babylonian. Well, if you remember your Old Testament history, remember the Jews were taken captive to Babylon. And if you remember the book of Daniel, you remember that at one point Nebuchadnezzar names Daniel, I think if you can read the original languages, it comes out to Rob Mag, which is head of the Magi. Daniel's understanding of Hebrew prophecy informed the Magi's understanding of what to look for in the stars over the ensuing 1,500 years. 1,500 years. In the British Museum, they have a tablet, a clay tablet, that documents when the star Venus rose above the horizon real early in the morning before the sun rises. You've seen the mornings. If you've ever seen the morning star, you know what I'm talking about. That tablet dates to right around the time of Daniel. It's more than likely his hands were on it at one point or another. I get goosebumps thinking about it. So anyway, and being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. No kidding. And therefore, there was wherewithal to travel, obedience to respond to the word, and what happened that started with the manger continued, and the young child grew up and came to be our Lord and Savior. And it's unlikely, isn't it? Like my son saying, Mom, like C.S. Lewis saying, the very unlikeliness is what caused him to believe it. The Apostle Paul has a different word for it. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 1. It's where he says, verse 18, For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it's the power of God. For it's written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. His methods are notoriously foolish. Think about the cross. You think about the walls of Jericho falling down because they marched around him 5 times. Think about, I think it was Jehoshaphat, and I forgot to look it up, who led a major battle by sending the praise team in first. Yeah, do the logic on that one. Think about a baby, and think about the new birth. Okay, you're God. Let's pretend you're God, and your task is, Adam and Eve have made a mess of things. I have to save the world. I'm going to wait a few thousand years and send a baby. I'm going to hold on, and I'm going to get him there by having made a nation happen. And I'm going to pick a guy here and a guy there. I'm going to pick Noah, who has a drinking problem, but he'll build an ark. I'm going to pick Abraham, who has a little problem with telling the truth under pressure. He'll raise a family. I'm gonna get these complaining Israelites out of Egypt, and I'm gonna keep them in the wilderness for 40 years. These are unlikelinesses of the first order. And then, so you're gonna save the world by bringing this baby into it, as opposed to a bad guy to end all bad guys, Herod, king of the Jews. And what's the baby gonna do? He's gonna grow up, and you're gonna give him what? An army? No. Superpowers? No. We're going to give the nation a book. We're going to have him adhere to the book, and then he's going to die. And that will save the world. And it has, and it is, and it does. The new birth. I'm going to close with 1 Peter 1:22. Seeing you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that you love one another with a pure heart fervently, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of God which lives and abides forever. And there's something I want to do to close, and it's going to require good-natured participation from all of you. And I'm gonna divvy you up into 3 sections. Over here, if you're over here, you're one section. If you're in the middle, you're another section. If you're over here, you're a third section. And we're gonna sing. And Neil, it was so perfect the way you ended worship, and thank you very much, by the way. I want to sing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. If you don't know it, I think I have confidence you can learn. And I'm going to lead, but when I point to you, I want you to do the in His hands. Okay, when I point to your section, and I'm going to start with I'm prepping the middle because there's most of you, so I'm going to have point to you first. Spoiler alert. I'm going to sing, but I would appreciate help on all the singing because I'm no singer. But let's sing together. He's got the whole world in His hand. He's got the whole wide world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the little bitty baby. He's got the little bitty baby. Well done. He's got the little bitty baby in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got you and me, sister, in His hands. He's got you and me, sister, in His hands. He's got you and me, sister, in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. Let's consider the brother part done and go back to the first verse. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole wide world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world